G'day punters. Okay, back for part 2, question time. Some good content here, not a huge amount today to cover, but we'll certainly get through these. Ross has asked by email, what's the biggest one or two things that turn a false favourite into a false favourite?
Yes.
Well, this is pretty wide, John. I mean, there can be lots of different things, I suppose. I mean, for me, it all comes down to price. So, you know, Rohirrim, for example, is just a false favourite by virtue of the fact that I can't get it short.
Yeah, and it was set up to it. Like to me, setup's the first thing you test a favourite by. So, never been to 1400, 1200 to 1400. That's not easy. First to second up. Where it's going to be in the map, are other horses in front of it or at better position on the map set up to run well? Yep. They all did. So they all had ticks and it had crosses. So to me, that's
Rohirrim's a classic example.
It's a perfect example of a false favourite, and it's not anything to do with opinion. It just had plenty against it. And even you go back further, its last run, it was in a pretty average race, had a perfect run. Other horses were, I think Improvement was the horse that was in behind it that had no luck, so that took away from it did really nothing first up. So there wasn't extraordinary merit in its previous run to overcome what it was facing in its next run, and then it was just a lock, stock and barrel, perfect false favourite.
So we can classify it probably as being very map related and very setup related.
It is. So you've either got to have extraordinary merit, so like a horse with great acceleration and strength and everything that can overcome whatever it faces its next up, basically class rises, distance rises, whatever it is, maps. The horse has got to be exceptional to overcome those things, or it's got to have things in its favour at its next up, whether it's better set up, better map, better track for it, better jockey change, whatever. There's a million reasons why a horse can improve or be fancy that day, but if all those things are against it, that's when you're sort of talking about a false favourite. So it's a horse that was probably maybe flattered at its last start, is a prime candidate for being a false favourite, and a horse that's maybe goes from, it's a leader from Cessnock, a mad leader's track, goes to all of a sudden Newcastle, big run on track. That's a negative, and things like that are underplayed often early in the market, and then at late in the market they're found out. So most false favourites are found out late in the market. Rohirrim wasn't.
Betfair's a great guide for that.
It is. But so you kind of the early players, it's more a more interesting for finding false favourites. I mean, like literally when I do form, I try and find a false favourite. If I'm doing quick form, especially like just sort of scanning through early when the prices come out, I get interested in a race. Go, there's a horse that I might have been waiting for because it was coming out of an average race or flattered its last start, and then I'll get into the race more.
So Ross, I hope that sort of answers that. Look, there's obviously more to it, and we'll probably cover.
It's a good question though, because that's a lot of people who don't have a lot of time finding false favourites, identifying them. It is.
Great way to start maybe a race to play into. Okay, so Jake's emailed in. How big a betting bank do you need to transition to full-time punting? I was thinking at least 100k would be a good starting point. And how would you make the transition in terms of diverting a percentage of your winnings to cover your living expenses going forward? So we'll answer that first. Great question, Jake. Look, I think it all depends on what your setup is financially, what your position is, whether or not you need to solely rely on this income, or whether you need to, or you've got access to other forms of income from investment or dividends or whatever.
Because it's very easy to start off flat, start tapping into your 100, betting to your 100, even though it's not there. Then all of a sudden it's down and you're under pressure, and it's a.
I would answer the question this way. I believe that the betting bank has to be available.
Exclusive,
Yeah, exclusive. So if you determine that you've got money to bet, and you've got a bank of 10,000 or 50 or
even if you've got 100 in the bank and you go, you don't put 100 to punting, you might make it 80 or 20, whatever you use.
Whatever the amount is, you've got to have it dedicated. That's my personal view. So in terms of what's a good starting point, well, I suppose it depends on how much you need to live. Now, if you break it down to how many times you can turn your bank over in, say, a year, and what sort of edge you think you might have over the market, if you've got an edge, that will obviously determine or give you a good guide. So let's just use a couple of examples here. If you had a $100,000 bank and you're having maybe 20 bets a week, and you're averaging 1.5% of your bank, let's say 1%. So we know that we're going to turn over 20% a week, or 20,000.
In this case,
So in 5 weeks, you've turned over your bank once. In a year, you've turned it over roughly 10 times. So if you've turned over, $1 million, so 10 times your 100,000.
Yep.
And your edge is say 5%.
Yeah, there's 50.
There's 50. So the question is it realistic that you can live on $50,000, assuming you're starting with a $100,000 bank? Is that going to cover your expenses, or do you need more?
Yes.
So that's a great way to actually start
Extract
off.
it out.
Extract it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's in always go worst case scenario with your turn. Like never believe that you're going to start making 20 or 30% on turnover.
You may not actually make that, and look, if you're making double figures.
If you're not making your 5, you don't want to be. You're not ready to go. You know what I mean? I know.
You've got to have enough evidence and also holdout data to know that you're actually going to achieve that.
Or at least be realistic that you're going to.
And realistically, look, drawdown affects everyone.
It does, and that's regardless, and that's the reason for the not tapping into your bank, because it can easily happen at the start.
Well, your 100 might become 50 at the start before you start winning. So you've got to understand too. I mean, are you going to be confident enough to continue if that happens? Jake, it might be worthwhile you just emailing me separately at Ratings to Win, and I can
definitely
give you a few more pointers on that. The second part of Jake's question was, how did you both make the transition, and do you have any advice for people looking to do the same? Well, once again, I think if you're ready to go professional, you've got to have your ducks in line. You've got to know what your financial capacity is and what your commitments are, and you've got to have a good.
I'll tell you what, it's obviously time consuming punting, but it's very difficult. I would say to transition from basically not punting semi-professionally to relying on it totally. Like I think there's not too many people that just go, well, I've got 100, I'm going to quit my day job and just dive into it. But if they haven't made that 100 from punting, for argument's sake. So like for me, I used to just muck around. Like obviously survived off betting, but used to play golf and didn't really care about, as long as there was money to do whatever I wanted to do. It wasn't really professional, it was just whatever. And then transitioning through working for a syndicate, working for a corporate, and I was always working for someone basically, whether I was still doing my own thing on the side for a long time.
Learning the craft.
Yeah. So that took me 10 years, more than 10 years, 15 years of learning, but always having a backup of an income as well. And then like it's even weird for me now saying I've been totally dependent for say 6 or 7 years, but even when 2 kids came along, that was a different pressure level. It's weird. It's a thing. Things changed and how you operate. Everything changed. So I'm probably a lot more disciplined and everything now due to responsibility than due to.
It was easier for me because I was in a financial position where I didn't have to worry about it.
And and it helps to have that side where I'm still developing that side of thinking all the time, how to make money, how to manage money. Whereas that sort of probably came to you before, which is a huge tool to have. Which I'd say most punters. It's a hard one to say. Many punters have the ability to win, but don't win, and it's usually due to
lots of reasons.
Financial, and financial, and not being able to handle money, handle betting decisions, and that's a very different thing to finding and identifying value or winners. So it's definitely a...
Jake, get in touch. Happy to even have a quick chat to you.
We've got 6 minutes to go.
We've got to move on through these.
Yeah.
Okay, next one comes from an Axis client. With other things being equal, which is obviously impossible, conditions are constantly changing, but how much weight do you put on the most recent start and second last start of a horse? Very quickly, I definitely weight last start heavier than I do second last start.
Yep.
Once you start getting away from the last couple of runs, then it's a different type of challenge. Michael, look, I can have a separate chat to you about this.
This is good. I like the question, and the second half of his question does say, does this have equal weight when last start, last prep, going into first start, this prep? So to me, last start and second last start are huge because they tell you how that horse is going, how fit it is, whether it's ready for today's assignment, whether today's better than whatever. It gives you a lot to work with. Whereas if you're working from last start, last prep to first start, this prep, without trials or anything, possibly trials are important. You want to see guessing.
The horse. You want to see the horse.
You've got truth, whereas you're using speculation to say, well, last time first up, this is what it did, and last time last step, this is what it did. It can be months.
We might get into that question.
It's a great question because it's got about 28 parts, but I actually
more detail.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Next one was from the Serving Punter on Twitter.
You just want to talk about this, don't you? Want to get me in trouble?
Well, I'll just get this out.
Yeah. 5 minutes to bury
whether or not whether we can have the faith in the stewards. Look, obviously
that was the question. Faith in stewards? Question mark.
there's been a lot of things happening, as most of you would know, over the last week. Some of them sort of related, unrelated. Look, at the end of the day, integrity in our sport is obviously a challenge and is a problem in many ways. And we need to feel that the stewards are doing an adequate job, and for the most part they do.
And most punters are sceptical, so they're always looking at things sideways.
It's not very easy to
black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
It is, and it's an unwinnable position from a steward's perspective. But you do want them to just think like punters a lot of the time. I guess why things that need to be explained should be explained, and that's all you want as a punter. You know what I mean? Whether that's I've been on both sides of it, where I think, why are they asking me these questions, and then I think, why didn't they ask someone else? It's a very difficult one for me personally.
Some of the decisions are always going to be controversial.
Yes. I think the more questions asked, the better. Yeah, because...
But at the end of the day, they are the racing police. They make the determinations, and their say is final. And so
it is.
We participate in the sport, we have to cop it.
100%, and we know that. And that's so with that protest the other day, like I wouldn't touch on... how Glenn Boss handled it, things like that. That's obviously up to them.
Glenn blew up and
blew a gasket, which is and that's right. And I think that's kind of how it's handled. Is probably fair enough. He knows it's like going and touching a referee on the shoulder in a rugby league game. You're going to get in trouble for it, and he knows he's blown a gasket and he expects. And I think $1,000 is probably fair, whether he was right or wrong. It's an opinion. You just don't talk back to the referee at the end of the day. And
you got to cop it sweet.
Yeah, the protest. I would have done my money betting on it.
Yeah, on my initial thoughts when I saw the head-on, or brief part of the head-on, was that it would be upheld. I can understand many punters thinking it should be dismissed.
Yep.
Glenn Boss's point was, well, look, if I don't stop riding it and I keep the whip on it, I win by...
He gets time, but he wins by half a length or more, and it's dismissed most likely.
Most likely.
Yes, most likely.
He's also got an obligation to stop riding the horse and straighten the horse.
Well, it stopped him getting time. He got a fine for probably issues later, but nothing to do with the race. Yes. So he's not got in trouble for his ride, which was right.
If you look at it from the point of view that if Superior was on, didn't have a horse outside it, and it ran out and veered out like it did under pressure.
Yeah.
With Glenn Boss continuing to ride,
wins.
And True Detective stays straight.
Yes.
I think it wins, and so I think at the end of the day, it was a questionable decision, but I think my
problem was watching it that it looked like True Detective had done a lot of work to get where it got to, and it had peaked. Whereas the other horse had done less work. He sort of cuddled it, and it looked like it was still stronger than the other horse, and that's why I thought they'd have enough doubt to say, well, we can't be sure.
Yeah.
And that's probably my opinion of it, but they were obviously of a different opinion, and that's their job. And
look, a couple of carryover ones for next week, unfortunately. Another one from the Surfing Punter and one from Simbot on Twitter.
Yep.
We'll get to those next week. Apologies.
Mate, there's 1 minute. You can answer that one. 2 out Bivouac or Libertini. The Blues may land multiple runners. I don't think they'll ever face each other, and I did say to him that I didn't think they'd ever see each other. Well, maybe. I'd love to see it over 1,200 or 1,100 or something, but I don't think they ever will face each other. But Bivouac's going to the San Domenico this week. It'll be short. Yep. Libertini goes wherever it goes, it'll be short. So they're obviously two highly talented horses that have got real meat to what they've done and where they're going, and type, and everything says that they're horses on the up that are going to be
exciting.
Yeah, and the only time you could possibly see them, I know Godolphin's got a spot in the Everest, and who knows, Bivouac might end up there and Libertini might end up in someone else's, and that's the only place I can see them clashing.
And could a horse like Flint turn the tables on Libertini at 1,400, possibly?
Well, yeah, that'd be all about conditions of the day for me, and Flint would have to draw nice and probably end up a lot closer to Libertini in the run.
Probably need more speed on too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's this week.
Sorry we cut short,
but we'll get that up soon on YouTube and obviously put a notification out. You can find John Walter at racingwatch.com.au or on Twitter.
Yep.
And you can find me, of course, at Ratings to Win. The Punters Academy handle is at TPAOZ, and you can email me either at Ratings to Win or paul at thepuntersacademy.com.au. So get your questions in next week. Thanks for your time this week, and looking forward to next week's show.
Cheers, guys.